What's up, everybody? It's Common Sense Investor coming at you with another video. And in this video, I've got the overview of self-regulatory organizations in my hand that I've been able to print out. It's the history of the SRO system. It tells me how it began. It tells me every amendment that they've made to it, what year they did it in. I mean, I've got it all here, people. All right. And what I can't do is show you the argument, but I'm going to read certain sections and I'm going to post it down here at the bottom for you to read along with me, so keep up. But before I get started, I got to jump through some hoops, and I think y'all know. Listen, I am not a legal advisor. I am just a cripple sitting at home by myself with my 3 dogs, and I research and write about legal loopholes and precedents and so forth. And I like to debate the arguments that are going on. That's all I am. I'm just an entertainer. I'm not a legal advisor. It's fucked up. You got to jump through all them hoops. But here's the thing, people. If I was Al from Boston, or if I was Jordan, and the New York Stock Exchange sent me some bullshit like they sent me talking about we got absolute immunity, people, if I was Al from Boston or if I was Jordan, I would consider the things that I've uncovered concerning SROs. All right? Now, when I'm done, if you want the whole report that I have put together on SROs and how to beat the New York Stock Exchange and their absolute immunity, then email me. You've got my email. I'd be happy to let you see the research I've done. All right, let's get started. The very first thing you need to know about SROs are how they got started. All right. Self-regulation in the securities industry has a long-standing tradition in the United States dating back to the 1700s. Footnote: The Buttonwood Agreement of 1792 formed the first organized stock exchange in New York. What do you think the name of it was? The New York Stock Exchange. And prior to the stock market crash of 1929, there was very little support or need for federal regulation and oversight in the stock market. Footnote. All right? Now, that's how an SRO got started. Well, in 1929, after the crash, they seen the need for exchanges to be regulated in another form other than by themselves. So they created the SEC to oversee SROs and the stock market, okay? The next part here comes from a case that I found called Justice William Douglas, who once served as the chairman of the SEC, observed from the beginning of federal securities regulation, the SEC allowed the exchanges to enjoy considerable anonymity, playing an essential passive role, which means the New York Stock Exchange and the other exchanges that were SROs could regulate themselves as long as they did their job. And if they didn't do their job, then it was the job of the SEC to step in, because as Justice Douglas explains, the SROs are the first line of regulation, and that the SEC was authorized to step in only when the SROs failed to adequately provide protection to investors. So, the SEC is not supposed to step in unless the New York Stock Exchange is not doing its job. All right? Now, that's a big hint right there, people. If the SEC, which we're going to get into, is fining Citadel all the fines that I've seen that they've gotten for naked short selling and front running their customers, all right, the SEC is fining Citadel that, not the New York Stock Exchange. So because the New York Stock Exchange allowed it, the SEC, the second line of defense, had to kick in, and that's the SEC, and the SEC took care of the business, and they went ahead and fined Citadel. So now we have to look at the question, why has the first line of defense failed and not brought charges against Citadel and the rest of the bad actors? Virtue, I've got your cases too, bud. All right. Why didn't the New York Stock Exchange, the first line of defense according to Justice Douglas, why didn't they step in and regulate these bad actors? Why is the second line of defense having to step in and do it? Good question, right? Answer. Because, and I'm going to have to read this to you, I can't show this part of the argument. All major U.S. exchanges had demutualized to become for-profit shareholder-owned corporations. So, they maintain their SRO status or their self-regulatory status. They're supposed to oversee the market. Now, take a look at who owns shares of the New York Stock Exchange. J.P. Morgan Chase. 7,700,620 shares. All right. What about Goldman Sachs Group? 2,718,199 shares, and the list goes on. UBS Group, all right. Even your smaller ones, if we get down here, the one that's 772,000, all right, which is some asset management holding company, all right. What's going to happen if the New York Stock Exchange starts finding these people? They will threaten to dump the stock. They will short the fuck out of New York Stock Exchange, and they're going to show them they don't have power over them. All right? As long as they are the majority shareholders of this company, Vanguard, BlackRock, all right, they tell the New York Stock Exchange what the fuck they do and what the fuck they don't do. That's why the market makers feel so comfortable doing what they do on the New York Stock Exchange. You're not gonna find your own shareholders that would go against your company. So they're not gonna regulate. They're not gonna bring charges against Citadel. They're not gonna bring charges against Virtue and the rest of them. It takes up to the second. It goes up to the second line of defense, which is SEC. Now, so now that we established why they don't regulate, and I do, then we have to ask ourselves this. Are they really the Teflon Dons they think they are? And the answer is no. Because if you have absolute immunity, that puts up a shield around you to where several things happen. All right. Number one, you are granting yourself absolute immunity before a crime is even committed. Now, how would it be if I knew that I could commit murder and I have immunity for that, so I could just go out and kill as many people as I fucking want? Well, I have absolute immunity. You can't charge me for murder. So let me wrap this puppy up and I can bring us to the next point. Look, if I was Al and I was Jordan and I was writing in relation to this, I would say that if you were to ask the New York Stock Exchange what would happen if someone committed fraud 2 months from now and they knew about it, could they be sued? And the New York Stock Exchange's response would be no, they could not be sued because they have absolute immunity. So you're giving yourself the concept of absolute immunity held by the SROs as if it's a shield coveting them. No. You can't claim immunity from a crime that hasn't even been committed yet. And that's what the concept that they try to implement, absolute immunity, says. Why is this so important and why am I harping on it? It's very simple, people. They responded to Al and Jordan, and they said that Al and Jordan did not bring a claim against them. That all they brought was just random thoughts, okay? But even if Al and Jordan would have had a claim against the New York Stock Exchange, they said they have absolute immunity. So basically what they've said there is that we don't even know what the claim's going to be that's going to come against us, but we're bulletproof. All right? And that's not true. If you were bulletproof, then somebody wouldn't have sued y'all's ass and won. Someone sued the New York Stock Exchange already and has won. The New York Stock Exchange settled because right here, the SEC charges the New York Stock Exchange for improper distribution of market data, all right? And they accused the New York Stock Exchange of sending in the orders to the preferred customers first, i.e. their fucking shareholders first, and then update the prices on the exchange. The SEC brought charges against the New York Stock Exchange for doing that, and they won. And they won. So, New York Stock Exchange, where was your bitch ass absolute immunity at in this case? You couldn't use it. And if one bullet got through and pierced their heart, another one can get through too. All right? You just got to know this is how you structure the argument, people. The SEC has already sued the New York Stock Exchange for market manipulation, and the New York Stock Exchange settled the lawsuit for, let's see how much it was. I forget. $5 million penalty. All right? And significant undertakings to settle the SEC charges. All right? They got fined $5 million, but that's not the point. The point is the bullet went through the armor of absolute immunity. All right? Why? Because they were not functioning as a governmental agency. They were suing them for not acting as a federal agency. All right? In other words, if they would have employed regulations against the bad actors and was wrong, then they would have absolute immunity in that particular case. Sort of like this. Absolute immunity. Judge has absolute immunity when he's sitting on the bench. But if he gets off the bench, he leaves the courthouse, gets in his car, goes to a bar, has a bunch of drinks, gets in a wreck on the way home. Can the judge claim immunity? No, because he's not in his official capacity. All right? The SEC was able to pierce the armor of the New York Stock Exchange's absolute immunity by showing that they are not acting in the capacity of the governmental regulators. All right? That they're doing the complete opposite. All right? They're acting as a market maker and profiting for their for-profit company, for their shareholders. And up to this point, everything's been fine. So there you go. There's the one that sinks the battleship of absolute immunity. If the SEC pierced the armor, so can you. And you just have to show the proof of what's been done. And that's going to be very simple, people. And that'll have to be for another video. So with that, love y'all. Be blessed. Not financial and not legal advice. Oh, do me a favor. It helps me out. Look down in the description or pinned to the comments. I've got an ebook for sale. Any sales goes towards me, the dogs, the house, and getting supplies, building up to build this lawsuit against these people. So it's a great help to me if people order the ebook. It's linked down below. You ask how you can help, just buy the ebook. And I'll see you in the next video. Love y'all. Be blessed.